Hey guys, how you doing today? Just went and got myself a burrito. Got a day off tomorrow, so usually when I got a day off, the day before, I go get a burrito. It's a beautiful thing. So I am fat and happy right before I do this video. What's this video about? It's about the privatization scam. Now seems to be an absolutely perfect time to talk about how privatization is a complete and total scam, how it robs citizenry of the money that they put in, how it raises prices, how it reduces services. Now is a perfect time to talk about it within the context of two events that are currently going on. Event number one, Jagmeet Singh of the NDP has committed to nationalizing, essentially, but no longer privatizing long-term care homes in Canada, as well as Bell Canada, right after doing like a mental health thing, like a hashtag Bell Let's Talk thing, goes ahead, lays off a couple hundred of its employees while collecting money from the government in the middle of a pandemic, no less. So privatization is a complete and total grift, and it's a complete and total scam, and these events really show it for what it is. The long-term care home scandal that's going on here has laid it out in a way that can only be called completely naked. What has happened is that the military moved into long-term care homes during the pandemic because it was a crisis that was going on, and they filed a very extensive report, which you can go read, right? And in that report, the bottom line on that report is that the long-term care homes that were privatized have been a complete and total disaster for Canada by large margins. More people dead, less services, people living in bug-infested units, people not able to get food, just absolutely ridiculous things happening in long-term care homes. And for clear and obvious reasons, right? Privatization simply does not work. It incentivizes people to raise prices on the user while simultaneously incentivizing a reduction in services. And for a very clear and simple reason, right? If you are the private owner of a company, right? You don't do any work. You're not useful. You're not adding anything of value to the company. But the company still needs to pay you, right? You still want to get a payout. So, how do you actually pay somebody who's not actually doing any work, who doesn't actually participate in the day-to-day running or functioning of the place? Well, you either have to raise prices or you have to lower services. And of course, if you're a parasitic capitalist who doesn't do any work, who doesn't actually help anybody, then you want to do both, right? Because you want to maximize the amount of money that you can make off of the elderly, or in the case of Bell, the people who use the communication network, right? The idea that we have a utility like the telephone and it's been privatized, to me, is completely asinine, right? We need a communications network. People use things like the internet. And the result of this, in the case of our telecommunications network, is that here in Canada, we pay the highest costs in the whole free world. Because the argument for privatization has always been that, oh, well, competition will drive down prices, right? Competition will drive down prices, they tell us. But what actually happens is that these big companies get together and they collude, right? They phone one another and they have one conversation annually, and they say, hey, we're going to keep prices at this level, right? High. And Bell says that to TELUS, and then TELUS says that to Rogers, and Rogers says that to Bell, and they all agree with one another. We're going to keep the price super high so that Canadians are forced to pay it because we're the big players, and everybody else can just, deal with it. And there's nothing that the Canadians can do about it, right? What we should be doing is nationalizing these services. It's usually at about this point that people close the video, so I'm just going to throw in here. Please subscribe. Subscribe to my stuff. You don't have a communist in your feed, I'm your communist. We should nationalize Bell, just like Jagmeet Singh is pledging to nationalize the long-term care homes here in Canada. As we should. It's extremely telling that amidst this pandemic, during the height of a crisis, when the military is releasing a report that obviously shows that the long-term care homes that have been privatized are a huge disaster for the people living within them, that the Liberal government has been completely silent and has done absolutely nothing about it, right? So we should definitely move forward with nationalization. We should definitely move forward and say, hey, we have to take care of our citizenry. They have to, like, we need long-term care homes, guys. Like, the idea that there are private long-term care homes and while simultaneously we're standing around being like, yes, our universal healthcare system is the pride of our, like we need to shut up and take a really hard look at ourselves as Canadians and be like, yes, we created universal healthcare, but like our dental care is not involved in that. Optical care is not involved in that. Like funeral care is not taken care of in that. Like, do you know anybody who's not going to die? Interesting that that's weird that remains in the hands of private owners, right? That's weird. And then long-term care home. Do you know anybody who's not going to get old? Do you know anybody who's not going to need to be taken care of in their old age? Right? I don't. And yet we allow these sort of vampiric parasites to suck the blood out of our society in order to do what? In order to do what exactly? Because the wealth doesn't trickle down. We know that, right? We keep getting almost monthly reports now saying that the wealth hasn't trickled down. So what's it for, right? What's it for if not to just completely dismantle our society and completely suck the blood out of it? We need to be moving towards nationalization at the bare minimum. You've heard me say on this channel over and over again that I think that we should be transferring the shares of ownership to the working class en masse. And that includes for companies like Bell, right? That Bell Canada should have all of the shares that are owned by people like Galen Weston, people like David Thompson, people who do no work and yet take all of the productivity of the workers for themselves. We need to take their shares and transfer it to the working class. And we've never seen it more nakedly done, right? For goodness sakes, like, Bell will literally spend like $5 million on a campaign trying to convince you that they're for mental health, while then also lobbying against mental health services, right? Like, and that's logical under capitalism. That's how capitalism thinks, right? I just need to convince people that I'm doing good. I don't need to actually do good. I just need to convince people that I'm doing good. And there'll be enough gullible people in the world, enough people who will actually believe what I say, that I can get away with this crazy grift. When I sit down is another time when people leave, so hey, subscribe. We've got to start doing better than this, guys. We've got to start doing better than this. Jagmeet Singh, in my view, is starting... He's starting to see that there's opportunity there politically, right? But he himself is not really a believer, and it's very clear. Like, he can be brought to these ideas. He can be brought to them. The long-term care one was too much. I think anybody who has any soul or rational spirit inside of them at all needs to take a look at the long-term care situation and has to conclude, okay, this needs to be nationalized. Like, there needs to be regulation, heavy regulation. Private interests cannot simply run ramshod over the elderly like this, which is exactly what they're doing. And this is how privatization is a scam across the board, right? You take functioning systems that are completely functioning because the workers are being paid well, right? The workers are being paid well, the services are being delivered completely fine. Everything is going completely fine because capitalists are pointless. They don't actually serve any purpose. And then along comes a capitalist who bribes a politician, right, to convince gullible rubes that no, the government is a problem, right? Oh, the government is we in the private industry could do this so much more efficiently. What they don't tell you is that when they say efficiently, they mean money for me, right? This service is not efficiently giving money to me. So when they finally do get into power and then privatize it, where does they're not working, right? They're not working. They're not doing anything. So how do they get the money to actually pay for their own existence? Well, they cut services, right? They raise prices, right? Or they cut wages. And those are the only ways that they have to pay for themselves, because they're pointless. They don't serve any purpose whatsoever. They're grifters who have convinced anyone. And you can see the results of it in the long-term care home, and you can see the results of it in our telecommunications network, which is why we should privatize why we should nationalize our currently privately held telecommunications network. Nationalize the communications network. Like, it's as clear as it can possibly be. The prices are high because the companies collude and they have no reason whatsoever to work to do anything else. Why would they? Why should they? Right? And as long as we gullibly continue voting for conservatives and gullibly continue voting for liberals as if they're at all interested in helping us, when it is truly obvious that they are not, we're just going to keep getting it. We're just going to keep getting it this way, right? Even if you're one of those people who's kind of like hemming and hawing on the NDP because you're like, oh, I don't know, they're like the devil, better the devil you know than the devil you don't. I think that's the dumbest thing. Like, now is the time, guys. Like, now is the time to start, at least to scare the hell out of the conservatives and the liberals. At least to scare them straight so that they actually start looking at the populace and going, oh, okay, what do the populace actually want? We actually have to respond rationally to what the populace wants. Like, when the orange wave went through Quebec, that scared the establishment, right? And it scared them enough to actually put forward a candidate who was actually at least talking a game, right? Remember that electoral form lie that the liberals put in front of us? Well, they did that for a reason, right? And we bit down on it, and we believed the liberals for no reason, because not for no reason. Justin Trudeau's a pretty boy with a father's name, right? So, what can we do, right, to really influence these guys and actually convince them that we should do this, that we should nationalize the telecommunications network, that just like we plan to nationalize the long-term care homes? Well, first of all, stop voting liberal conservative. Just hard no. Right? Hard no. They've lost their confidence. You're voting for psychopaths and sociopaths and sycophants. It's obvious. So hard pass on that. But also start joining non-politically aligned organizations, right? Like, I've joined an organization called Socialist Action. I'm going to put their link down below. I suggest everybody join it because this is an organization that works with the NDP but is not beholden to the NDP. So they can simultaneously take the NDP over should they get strong enough, but they also could move over to another organization and take that organization over, right? And it's aligned very clearly on socialist ideals and socialist ideas like we're talking about. And we absolutely should be pushing to eliminate privatization from our society because it's an obvious grift. And it's an obvious grift for the reasons that I'm talking about here. The people involved in the market do not compete with one another. They have to pay for their worthlessness somehow, and the way that they do that is by raising prices on you, right? Raising prices on you, cutting your wages, or making services worse, right? Which they do across the board. So we should nationalize the communications network at bare minimum, in my view. So this is the end of the thing. Like, share, subscribe. If you've made it to this point, you guys, you gotta subscribe, right? Most people by this point have dropped off. I take a look at my analytics, right? Most people drop off at that 5-minute point I was talking about. If you're still here, it's because you love me. It's because you love me and you think I'm pretty. Just subscribe, though. Just subscribe, right? This is a fast-growing channel. Communist ideas. I know you don't have a communist in your feed. I know you don't. So I'm the communist in your feed, right? So please share. Hit that like button. It's just right there. It's free to do. You could have done it already 3 times over. Hit that share button. Send it over. Piss your dad off. Piss your uncle off with this, right? Your conservative uncle who thinks that he's smart, or that he thinks Rex Murphy has a brain in his head. And if you guys really, really want me to keep fighting this fight, and if you really want to fund the revolutionary project, my Patreon is down below. You can give me $1. All right, guys, go out, have a drink, have a nice evening. Try to relax. Good luck. We're gonna need it.